All right, so we're going to dive into something that keeps, I think, every IT pro up at night,
Definitely, yeah.
making sure that your vCenter appliance is ready for anything.
Mm-hmm.
So, imagine juggling multiple data centers.
Yeah.
Each one has its own vCenter. It's managing all those virtual machines.
Right.
Everything's running smoothly
Smooth sailing
until
yeah.
disaster strikes.
Yeah,
That's what we're diving into today.
that's right.
So we're really going to dissect this expert guide to making sure your vCenter appliance is bulletproof,
Yeah, bulletproof for disaster recovery.
especially, thinking about a multi-site setup.
Yeah, exactly. And the aim here is to give you strategies you can actually put into practice,
Yes.
not just theory.
And,
Yeah.
you might be surprised
Yeah.
that vCenter high availability,
Yeah.
the feature everyone's heard of,
Everyone loves it. Yeah.
might not be the best fit for multi-site setups.
Yeah, there are better ways.
We'll unpack that a little bit later.
We will.
But first, let's lay the foundation with the separate but equal approach
Right.
for vCenter instances.
So this strategy is all about independence.
Okay.
You have a dedicated active vCenter for every single data center.
Okay.
So if one of your data centers goes down,
Right.
the other one keeps on running,
Gotcha.
no single point of failure.
Okay, that makes sense in terms of resilience.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm picturing constantly logging in and out of different vCenters.
Yeah, that would be a pain.
That seems like a management nightmare.
Right, so that's where enhanced linked mode comes in.
Okay.
ELM.
ELM.
It's like, a central control panel for all of your vCenters.
Okay.
You get that unified view, that single pane of glass management.
So ELM, it brings back the single pane of glass.
Exactly.
That's good. That's a relief.
Yeah.
But is there a downside to linking those production and DR vCenters so closely?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
While ELM is powerful,
Yeah.
too much integration can actually backfire during a disaster. For example, let's say your production and your DR vCenters.
Oh, yeah.
They're very tightly linked within the same SSO domain.
Mm-hmm.
An SSO issue could affect both of your environments.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So it's kind of like
Like putting all your eggs in one basket, even though they're technically in separate baskets.
yeah, exactly. They're tied together.
Tied together.
So bottom line with ELM is link your vCenters for management,
Okay.
but don't tie them together so tightly
Right.
that a single SSO issue can take down both production and DR.
Right. You need that balance, that separation.
Exactly. That balance is going to depend on your specific setup and your risk tolerance, really.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so we've got our separate vCenters humming along.
Yeah.
We've got that. But what about the VMs?
The virtual machines themselves.
The machines.
Right.
How do we make sure that they're protected in a multi-site disaster?
Another great question, and this is where vSphere Replication and Site Recovery Manager come into play.
Okay, SRM, I've heard these names thrown around.
Mm-hmm.
Break it down for me.
Okay.
What are they doing?
So think of vSphere Replication like constantly creating an updated backup
Good idea.
of your VMs at your DR site.
Yeah.
It's not real-time mirroring,
Right.
but it's capturing those changes regularly. So you minimize the amount of data you lose if there's an outage.
Okay, so it's kind of like a safety net that's always adjusting
Exactly.
to catch the changes. I like that.
Yeah,
But how do those VMs actually come online
right.
at the DR site when disaster strikes?
That is where SRM comes in.
Okay.
SRM is it's the orchestrator
Okay.
for your disaster recovery plan. So think of it like the conductor of an orchestra, right?
Okay.
It's making sure everything happens in sync.
Gotcha.
SRM integrates with your vSphere replication,
Okay.
and it automates that entire failover process.
So it takes the guesswork out of it,
It does.
especially when, every second counts
Especially when every second counts.
in that disaster scenario.
It's particularly valuable if your organization has very strict RTOs and RPOs.
Okay, now hold on. What are RTOs?
Recovery time objective
Okay.
and recovery point objective.
Okay.
So that's, how long you can afford to be down
Right.
and how much data loss you can tolerate.
Gotcha.
So with SRM,
Hmm.
you can initiate that failover
Okay.
with, very little human intervention
Right.
to make sure you're back up and running as quickly as possible.
That makes a lot of sense, especially for, those high stakes scenarios
Yes.
where downtime means lost revenue.
Lost revenue, loss of productivity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And plus, I've heard that SRM lets you test your DR plan
It
without
does.
actually disrupting anything.
That's a big one.
That's going to be huge for peace of mind, right?
Absolutely huge.
Yeah.
Being able to test your plan without affecting your live environment is just invaluable. It's like a fire drill for your IT infrastructure.
Love it, love it.
You can find those potential issues
Right.
before they actually become problems
Yeah.
and something really happens.
So, okay, so far we've got the vCenters.
Separate vCenters. Yep.
We're replicating the VMs. We are orchestrating everything.
Yeah.
But isn't there something else?
Yeah, there's a fundamental piece
Fundamental to any DR plan
to any DR plan
that we're missing.
Yeah, and you hit on it. Backups.
Backups, of course.
Backups.
Backups, we all know they're important.
Yes.
But what's so special about backing up a vCenter appliance?
Treat those vCenter appliance backups.
Okay.
Like they are the crown jewels.
Okay.
We want regular automated backups stored totally separately
Okay.
from your primary vCenter appliance.
You wouldn't keep your backup hard drive next to your computer.
Yeah.
Right?
You wouldn't.
No way
Yeah.
that defeats the purpose of the backup.
Exactly.
Okay, so for vCenter backups,
Yeah.
what's the best practice?
So the best practice is to use VMware's file-based backup.
Okay.
This lets you store your backups on a server that's external, either on-site or off-site.
Okay.
You know, make sure they're protected even if you can't reach your vCenter appliance.
So automation, off-site storage, and regular testing to make sure they're restorable.
Yes.
Testing is key.
Got it.
Yeah.
But what about those appliance-level snapshots?
Yeah. So appliance-level snapshots.
I've heard those can be helpful.
Yeah.
Are they just as good?
They can be useful
Okay.
for capturing the state of your vCenter
Right.
at a specific moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
But they shouldn't replace your file-based backups.
Okay.
Think of a snapshot like a photocopy
Okay.
when you need the original document.
I see.
Right.
Okay.
It's handy.
Handy for some situations,
Yeah.
but not the be-all, end-all. All right, file-based backups are the gold standard.
Okay, we've covered a lot. We've
Yeah.
got the separate vCenters, the VM replication,
Yeah.
SRM backups.
Mm-hmm.
But there's one more piece, right?
One more piece of the puzzle.
What if we can't even reach our DR site?
You are hitting on a very critical point.
Yeah.
Cross-site connectivity.
Okay.
It's the unsung hero of DR.
Okay.
Imagine your DR site is ready to go.
Right.
Your backups are current.
Mm-hmm.
But suddenly the network connection between sites fails.
Oh.
It's like having a lifeboat but no oars.
Yeah, that's a scary thought.
It is.
So how do we make sure that connection is rock solid?
Redundancy.
Okay.
We want multiple paths, multiple options.
Okay.
So even if one route fails,
Right.
there's another way to get where we need to go.
Multiple network connections between the sites.
Yes.
No single point of failure.
Exactly. Eliminate any bottlenecks in your network.
Okay. But what about IP addresses?
Right.
You know, when the VMs fail,
Yep.
do we have to reconfigure everything on the fly?
So if your network allows it,
Okay.
stretched VLANs can be a game changer.
Okay.
It's like extending a virtual network cable between your sites.
Right.
So your VMs can keep their IP addresses.
Ah, okay. So it's not as chaotic.
Not as chaotic at all.
You don't have to re-IP everything in the middle of a disaster.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got the redundant paths.
Yeah.
We've got the stretched VLANs.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else to consider?
Yes, traffic prioritization.
Okay.
Make sure your network policies are prioritizing those essential services, like
Okay.
vSphere replication, SRM communications,
Right.
any other critical traffic.
Right. We don't want those getting stuck in traffic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like we want to make sure they have the bandwidth they need.
So that's our basic redundancy.
Mm-hmm.
Any advanced options to consider?
There are, yeah.
Okay.
For organizations with really high demands,
Okay.
you know, they might need real-time or near real-time data mirroring. So that's where technologies like vSphere Metro Storage Cluster or VPLEX come in.
Right.
They enable synchronous data replication. So every change is mirrored between those sites instantaneously.
Okay, that sounds pretty high-tech.
It is.
And I bet it comes with its own complexities.
It does. You need specific hardware, networking capabilities,
Right.
and a lot of planning.
Right.
So it's really best suited for those mission-critical environments
Okay.
where even a couple seconds of data loss is unacceptable.
So good to know it exists. But for most multi-site setups,
Yeah.
that robust redundancy we talked about,
With the stretched VLANs and the multiple paths,
that will probably be sufficient.
probably sufficient. Yeah.
Okay, good.
It's about tailoring your approach
Right.
to your needs and your risk tolerance.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've built a pretty solid foundation.
We have.
Separate vCenters, the VM replication,
Mhm.
the rock-solid connectivity,
Not
the
yet.
backup.
The backup.
But now, get ready for a strategy that you might not expect.
Okay.
We're talking about prioritizing application recovery
Yeah.
over restoring vCenter
In certain scenarios,
in a disaster.
yeah, it might sound a bit counterintuitive,
Fair.
but sometimes
Yeah.
getting those critical applications up and running
Right.
as quickly as possible
Mhm.
is more important than restoring the whole vCenter environment immediately.
Okay, I hadn't considered that. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like if a
Mhm.
restaurant's reservation system goes down,
Right.
they can still serve walk-in customers.
Right. They find a workaround.
Yeah, they find a workaround
Yeah.
while they're getting the system back online.
Exactly. A lot of applications, they can actually function
Okay.
without constant management from vCenter.
Right.
So you might lose some advanced features,
Okay.
but you can keep going,
Keep the lights on.
Keep the lights on, keep those critical services running
Yeah.
while you're working on getting vCenter back.
So we're buying ourselves some time
Exactly.
to get those services online
Yep.
without having to wait for vCenter.
Yep.
That's clever.
It's a strategic decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I know a lot of organizations use vCenter HA,
They do. It's very popular.
vCenter HA
Yeah.
for redundancy.
Yeah.
But I understand that while it's great for some things,
Mhm.
it's not really a fit
Yeah.
for multi-site disaster recovery.
You're right. vCenter HA is a great tool,
Okay.
but it has limitations
In a multi-site scenario,
in a multi-site scenario.
why isn't it a perfect solution there?
So the main issue is
Yeah.
vCenter HA is designed to work in a single data center.
Okay.
You can't deploy those passive nodes
Right.
in different locations.
Right.
So it's going to protect you
Okay.
against hardware failures in your primary data center.
Right.
But if you lose that whole data center,
Right. Right.
it's not going to help.
I see. I see.
So it's kind of like having a backup generator for
Yeah.
your house.
Right. Like a backup generator. Yeah.
Great for power outages,
Mm.
but not so much if there's a flood or a fire.
Perfect analogy. Okay.
Yeah.
So vCenter HA is good for that localized
The
protection,
localized protection, yeah.
but shouldn't be mistaken for a full,
For a full-blown
multi-site.
multi-site solution.
Okay. We've covered a ton of ground already.
We have, yeah.
Separate vCenters, the VM replication,
Mm-hmm.
SRM is ready to orchestrate.
Yep.
We've got those backups,
So it's all-important backup.
rock-solid connectivity.
Yeah.
We even explored that idea of prioritizing application recovery.
In certain situations.
Yeah, I think it's clear that that multifaceted
Yeah.
approach is essential
It is, absolutely.
for a truly resilient vCenter environment.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up this part,
Mm-hmm.
are there any other things
Yes.
our listeners should be thinking about?
Yeah. One of the biggest takeaways here
Yeah.
is there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
The best approach for you depends on your requirements,
Mm-hmm.
your risk tolerance,
Right.
how critical those applications are.
Right, right.
So it's really important to evaluate all of these strategies.
Okay.
Understand their strengths and weaknesses,
Mhm.
and then tailor your plan
Yeah.
to your specific needs.
What are some key questions, though?
So some key questions to ask yourself.
Yeah.
First of all, what are your RTOs and RPOs?
Now, remind me, what are those again?
So RTO, recovery time objective.
Okay.
How much downtime can you afford?
Okay.
RPO, recovery point objective.
Okay.
How much data loss is acceptable?
Okay. Yeah.
Those factors are going to heavily influence what technology you choose.
Right, right.
And the level of redundancy you need.
Yeah, if every minute of downtime is costing you thousands of dollars,
Yeah, exactly.
you need a different solution.
You need a more robust and probably a more expensive solution
Right.
than if you've got a little bit more leeway.
Yeah. Okay. Good point.
Yeah. So, next, think about the complexity of your environment.
Yeah.
How many virtual machines do you have?
Right.
How spread out are your data centers?
Mm-hmm.
The more complex it is,
Yeah.
the more important it is to have a very well-defined plan.
A well-defined, thoroughly tested plan.
Yes, don't underestimate testing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then finally,
Okay.
don't forget about the people.
Okay.
Do you have a team
Mm-hmm.
that's responsible for disaster recovery?
Okay.
Are they trained?
Trained, yes.
Do they know what to do?
Yeah, because the best technology won't work
Right.
if you don't have a team that knows how to use it.
Exactly.
It all comes back to that human element.
It does, yeah.
Okay, we've covered a ton of ground today.
A lot of information.
A lot of information.
Yeah.
I think it's a good point to pause our deep dive.
Yeah. Let everyone digest.
Give our listeners a chance to digest all this.
Yeah.
When we come back, we'll continue exploring vCenter disaster recovery.
More strategies, best practices.
We'll dig into more of those specifics to
Yeah.
help you build that resilient and recoverable environment.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll be back soon.
See you then.
Welcome back to our deep dive into vCenter appliance disaster recovery.
Yeah, we've covered, I think, some of the core building blocks.
Yeah, the foundation.
Yeah, of a resilient multi-site setup.
Right, but now let's get into those nitty-gritty details.
The details.
Yeah, it can really trick you up
To trip you up, yeah.
if you're not careful.
It's like having a great escape plan, but forgetting to pack a toothbrush.
Yeah, exactly.
So, for instance, have you thought about licensing
Licensing.
in a disaster recovery scenario?
Honestly, I hadn't even considered that.
Yeah, it's easy to overlook.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
imagine you've failed over your VMs to your DR site.
Oh.
Everything's back up and running.
Right.
But suddenly you realize your vCenter licenses aren't valid in that new environment.
Okay, yeah, that would be a problem.
It's a big headache.
So how do we avoid that?
So it's all about being proactive.
Okay.
Understand your licensing agreements.
Mhm.
Make sure you've got the licenses you need for that DR site.
Right.
And know how to activate them quickly
Okay.
when you need to.
So it's not just the tech, it's those admin tasks too.
It's the admin, yeah, making sure all the I's are dotted and the T's are
The I's are
marked.
dotted, the
Yeah.
T's are crossed, yeah.
And while we're talking about admin tasks, let's not forget DNS configuration.
DNS.
Yeah.
Domain name system.
Yeah, domain name system.
What does that have to do with disaster recovery?
So remember, when you fail over to your DR site,
Yeah.
your virtual machines, they're going to have new IP addresses.
Right.
If your DNS records aren't updated,
Yeah.
users won't be able to find those applications,
Oh.
even if they're
They
running.
can't resolve the names.
Exactly. So we need to make sure those DNS records are updated
To reflect the new IPs.
to reflect those new IP addresses. Yeah.
Okay, is there a best practice for that?
So you can use dynamic DNS services.
Okay.
You can configure your DNS servers to update automatically.
Right.
You can even have a manual process if you need to.
Okay.
The important thing is you have a plan.
You have a plan, got it.
Yeah.
So whether it's automated or manual,
Mm-hmm.
it's about making sure that those records are accurate.
Accurate and up to date.
Up to date, yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of crucial things,
Okay.
let's talk about documentation.
Documentation, yeah.
It's the not so glamorous part.
Not so glamorous, but
Essential.
essential, yeah.
It's easy to skip over it
Right.
when you're focused on getting the technical stuff set up.
Right.
But you'll thank yourself later
Yeah.
if you've got clear documentation.
Okay, but what should we be documenting?
So you don't need to document every single thing, but
Yeah.
definitely the key elements.
Well-
So things like network configuration, your vCenter settings, your replication settings,
Right.
SRM configurations,
All right.
backup procedures,
Yeah.
basically anything
Mhm.
that someone would need to know to actually execute that DR plan.
So it's like a step-by-step guide.
Step-by-step guide, yeah.
So even if you're not around,
Even if you're not around, yeah.
someone else can step in and know what to do.
Exactly, and don't forget to keep it up to date.
Up to date, yes.
Your environment will change.
Right.
Your DR plan needs to evolve too.
So regular documentation reviews,
Regular reviews, just like your backup.
just like the backups, just like testing the plan.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, it's all about staying on top of things.
Staying on top of things.
Now,
Now let's switch gears a little bit.
Okay.
Let's talk about security.
okay.
It's an aspect that I think sometimes gets overlooked.
Security, yeah, I can see how
Yeah.
in the chaos of a disaster,
Due to the chaos, yeah.
that might not be the first thing on your mind.
You're just trying to get everything back up and running.
Right. But it's something you really can't afford to ignore.
Yeah, I bet it's actually more important
It,
during a disaster, right?
it's even more critical.
Okay.
In a disaster recovery situation,
Yeah.
your systems are more vulnerable during a failover,
Okay.
especially if you're using any kind of temporary infrastructure
Right, you're right.
or you're having to change your network configuration.
Okay.
It's like leaving all the doors and windows open
Yeah.
when you're rushing out of a burning building.
Yeah, good analogy.
So how do we maintain that security focus?
Okay, yeah. How do we do that?
So make sure
Yeah.
that your security posture stays strong
Okay.
throughout the entire DR process.
Okay, so no relaxing the rules.
No relaxing the rules.
Just because we're in disaster recovery mode,
If anything, we need to be more vigilant.
right?
And don't forget to secure those backups.
The backups, yeah.
Backups contain so much sensitive information.
Right.
You don't want that falling into the wrong hands.
Encrypt them, store them securely. Encrypt them, Store them securely. Yes.
Make sure only the right people have access.
Exactly.
Okay.
And user training.
Training, yeah.
Your team needs to be aware of those security risks
Right.
associated with DR.
Yeah, because human error.
Human error is often the weakest link.
The weakest link, right?
So training and awareness are key.
Okay, so we've got to train them, make them aware.
Make them aware, yeah.
All right, good, good.
Now let's move on to communication.
Communication, okay.
Communication.
I know it's important in general.
Yeah.
But what does it have to do specifically with disaster recovery?
Think about all the people that need to be kept in the loop during a disaster.
Okay, like,
You know, your IT team, management, customers, vendors.
like everyone's going to want to know what's going on.
Everyone wants updates, yeah.
When are things going to be back to normal?
Exactly. So you need a clear communication plan
A plan.
in place before disaster strikes.
Okay, so what should that plan include?
So who's responsible for communicating? What channels are you going to use?
Right.
What information are you going to share?
So it's almost like a script.
It's like a framework.
A framework, yeah.
So you're not scrambling to figure it out in the moment.
Right, in the middle of a disaster.
When the pressure's on.
When the pressure's on.
Yeah. And don't forget to test it.
Test the communication plan.
As part of your DR testing, yeah.
Make sure those contact lists are up to date.
Make sure the contact lists are up to date. Make sure everyone knows their roles.
Right.
Make sure those communication channels are reliable.
Right, because a plan is only as good
Yeah.
as its ability to get the message out.
Exactly.
Okay, so plan, test, make sure it works.
Make sure it works, yeah.
Okay, good.
Now let's talk about something that I think is often overlooked.
Okay.
The psychological impact.
The psychological impact
Yeah.
of disaster recovery.
Of disaster recovery on your team.
Oh, okay. I hadn't thought about that.
It's easy to get caught up in the technical side of things.
Right, the tech.
But DR can be incredibly stressful
Yeah.
for everyone involved.
Yeah, of course.
They're dealing with long hours.
All right.
The pressure to get those systems back up.
Yeah.
Potentially the loss of data or critical services.
Yeah, it's not just about flipping switches and restoring servers.
It's not just about the tech.
It's people
It's the people.
dealing with a really stressful situation.
Exactly. And that human element can really impact your recovery.
Right, because a burned out team
Yeah.
is going to make mistakes.
We're more likely to make mistakes.
That's going to prolong the recovery.
Exactly.
Yeah. So how can we support our teams?
So first of all, acknowledge that stress.
Okay.
Let them know it's okay to feel overwhelmed, that
Yeah.
their well-being is a priority.
Right.
Encourage breaks, rest.
List. Yeah.
You know, avoid working those really long hours without downtime.
Right. It's like a marathon. You need to pace yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, and don't forget about teamwork.
Team.
Encourage your team to support each other.
Right.
You know, share the workload.
Yeah.
Celebrate those small wins.
Celebrate the wins. Yeah.
Because it can make a big difference
It can. It can.
when things are tough.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So as we wrap up this part of the discussion,
Okay.
I want to leave you with this thought.
Okay.
Disaster recovery is a journey,
A journey, not a destination.
not a destination. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not a one-time thing.
Right.
You know, technology changes,
Right.
your environment changes,
Mhm.
new threats emerge.
Yeah.
You need to stay up to date
Up to date.
on the latest best practices,
Okay.
review your plan regularly, test it,
Test it. Yeah.
and be ready to adapt
Adapt. Yeah.
as
yeah.
needed.
All right. Welcome back to our deep dive on making sure your vCenter appliance is ready to handle any disaster.
We've covered a lot, haven't we?
Well, yeah.
Everything from those, you know, those nuts and bolts technical details
Right,
to
okay.
those often overlooked details that can really make or break your recovery efforts.
We've given, I think, our listeners a lot to think about.
Definitely.
I think they're armed with some serious knowledge now
I hope so.
to build that bulletproof vCenter environment.
Yeah.
But before we wrap things up completely, I wanted to circle back to
Yeah.
a topic we touched on earlier,
Okay.
vCenter High Availability, or HA.
Yeah, good point. It's a feature that you know,
Yeah.
sometimes causes some confusion when we talk about disaster recovery.
Right. And we know it's not a true multi-site solution,
No.
but I think it's worth revisiting
Yeah.
to clarify its role and why it's not the whole picture.
Absolutely. So vCenter HA is really designed for high availability within a single data center.
Okay.
So it protects against things like hardware failures, software crashes,
Mhm.
but it's not going to help if you lose that entire data center.
So it's a bit like having a spare tire in your car. Great for a flat tire, but not the engine blows up.
Exactly. Yeah.
Uh-uh.
vCenter HA works by having a passive node.
Okay.
It's constantly mirroring data from the active node.
Okay.
So if the active node goes down,
Right.
that passive node can take over seamlessly, minimizing that downtime.
So it's great for maintaining uptime within a location,
Within a single location, yeah.
but it doesn't address the challenge of a true multi-site disaster,
It doesn't.
where that entire data center could be unavailable.
That's right. It's important to understand the difference, I think,
Yeah.
between high availability
Yeah.
and disaster recovery.
Right. So high availability.
High availability is minimizing downtime in a single location.
Okay.
Disaster recovery is recovering from a complete site outage.
So like having a backup generator for your house
Yeah,
versus having a completely separate house you can move into
exactly. Yeah.
if your primary home is damaged.
You wouldn't rely on a backup generator for every disaster.
Right. Right.
And you shouldn't rely on vCenter HA
Okay.
for multi-site DR.
Got it. So vCenter HA.
Yeah.
It's a valuable tool,
It is. It's a valuable tool.
but it's only one piece of the puzzle.
One piece of the puzzle.
Right,
Yeah.
Right.
You need that overall strategy that includes all those other elements we talked about.
Right.
The separate vCenter instances.
Yeah.
The vSphere replication.
Mm-hmm.
SRM, the backup.
Lookups. Yep.
The rock-solid connectivity.
Connectivity. Yeah.
And of course, a well-defined and tested plan.
Right. So it's about having multiple layers of protection.
Multiple layers of protection, yeah.
Not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly.
Okay, good.
And as we wrap up this
Yeah.
this deep dive, I wanna leave our listeners with this final thought.
Okay.
Disaster recovery is not just about technology.
Okay.
It's about people.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Even with the best technology in place,
Mm-hmm.
it's your team, it's your people
Hmm.
who are going to be making those decisions,
Right.
taking action when disaster strikes.
It's the human element again.
It is. So it's about having a skilled and prepared team
Okay.
who understand their role
Mm-hmm.
and are ready to step up when it matters most.
So it's about investing in training,
Training, yes.
creating that culture of
That's right, for
preparedness,
preparedness, yeah.
empowering your team to be those disaster recovery heroes.
Exactly, because at the end of the day,
Yeah.
when it comes to disaster recovery,
Yeah.
it's the people that make all the difference.
Well said. Well, I think we've
Yeah.
given our listeners a lot to think about today.
A lot to digest.
We've really explored this this world of vCenter appliance disaster recovery
For multi-site setups.
from multi-site setup.
Yeah, we covered it all.
From the technical details to the human element,
Yeah,
I think we've armed them with what they need
I think so too.
to create that resilient vCenter environment.
Yeah.
And most importantly, stress the importance of tailoring their plan.
Tailoring it.
You know, there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
There isn't, no.
It's about finding that right combination
Great combination, yeah.
of technologies, strategies, procedures
Mm-hmm.
to fit your needs.
To fit your specific needs and your circumstances.
Right.
And to make sure your business can weather any storm.
All right, so take what you've learned.
Yeah, go forth and build that disaster-proof environment.
You'll be glad you did.
You will.
And until next time, keep diving deep, keep exploring, keep learning.
Deep learning.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive into the world of technology.